To get out of this.
Okay, welcome again to The View from Here, Behind Enemy Lines, ladies and gentlemen. We have a guest here who is nationally recognized as a forensic psychologist. In fact, I think people call you America's psychiatrist.
Yes.
And it's a pleasure meeting a psychiatrist who is actually not on the left, because I think a lot of your colleagues are.
I know. I just went to the website of the American Psychiatric Association the other day, because I'm trying to get Trump Derangement Syndrome, included in the DSM, the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual, the next one. And I could not believe, I hadn't been looking at this website for a long time, and I could not believe how things have changed. It was so woke. It was like, this is this American Psychiatric Association. It was just everything on the website, all the different committees and so on were just represented wokeness, DEI, all of that. And I used to be very, very active in the American Psychiatric Association, beginning when I was a psychiatric resident, chief resident at NYU Bellevue. And so I was very involved on their public affairs committee and so on. And so, I knew what their website and what they were all about at that time, but they have unfortunately changed.
Yeah, it seems like they're more the American Psycho Association these days.
Well, the entire country is
someone was just telling me
the entire country is undergoing some sort of psychotic experience.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, that's what in fact, with my definition of Trump Derangement Syndrome is an irrational, quasi-psychotic hatred of anything Trump, resulting in rage and over-the-top efforts to destroy him and his work. So, yes.
I had firsthand experience when my fiance left me because I wanted to vote for Trump.
Really?
Yeah.
And she was I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, just, if that's the reason, you're better off that she left you. That's not what, marriage or relationships are supposed to be about. Love is not supposed to be, love means not having to say you're sorry.
Oh, God, no. I just lost respect for you. So, but the thing is that I'm a firm believer that politics can be put on the side, and yes, over time, I did discover that I'm better off as I am. It's just it's tragedy to see somebody basically dissolve, and basically become not the person that you envisioned.
Not coincidentally, Mike has been married twice before to two different psychologists. Okay.
Yes.
And they are both politically opposed.
No. Just one.
Just the second one. Oh, I thought. So Elizabeth's not. Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
It's hard to say with Elizabeth. I don't really have that kind of conversation with her. But yes, my other ex-wife. She is
most recent.
She's got DTS, and I've learned not to argue with her. Last time when she sent me a text that basically was ridiculing me for having voted for Trump, I simply told her to take a breath, understand that he's the president right now, and try to hope that what he's doing is actually for the best. And that's the best I could do. I'm tired of trying to, and you suggested this in your, in some of your videos that I've watched, that you cannot engage these people intellectually. It is a more intimate, almost emotional experience where you're trying to get them to recognize possibly that the issue is not Trump, it's them.
Yes. I've divided this into 3 categories: mild, moderate, and major. And I say that for the mild type, you could try to not engage them in a dispute or an argument or a debate in regard to policy, in regard to logical facts and so on. but rather more about, with therapy, more about helping them to deal with what it is inside them that makes them not like Trump. So, for example, some men don't like Trump because they compare themselves to him and they feel inadequate and, jealous and like he's more of a man than they are, more powerful. And so, so if you help the man to get more self-esteem, then theoretically he wouldn't be as opposed to Trump.
Most leftists seem to have low self-esteem. They are they're in the throes. They're in the hands of the feminists who've been denigrating masculinity for years now, and they seem to honestly believe that.
I wanted to bring up a subject with you that I think might be outside of the normal ballpark in regards to TDS.
Sure.
Because I was inspired by Robert F. Kennedy and his health, promoting health and all. I was wondering how much of this TDS is magnified by poor diet and basically being very low energy.
Well, that's an interesting question or point. Well, first of all, being low energy goes along with what I was saying about, these men having low self-esteem and feeling not as manly, not as big, not as powerful. But also, a bad diet just in general makes you less thoughtful, less able to think things out, and more, less psychologically intact, let's say.
Okay. So there's something there. But, maybe
it contributes. Yeah. It contributes to the mental part of it.
I was just wondering if it was a bigger piece of the pie.
I mean, pretty much anything in one's life, everything in one's life is affected by one's diet, whether if we don't have a good diet or we're eating toxins, which apparently we're eating a lot of, that would make us less likely to do a lot of exercise, to be proactive in general. So it makes you feel helpless, makes you feel weak.
So are we to consider people with TDS victims of something?
Well, I wouldn't make them as victims, describe them as victims. They're certainly not victims of Trump, but one could say perhaps that they are. I don't like anyone to have the excuse of calling themselves a victim, but one could maybe say that they are victims of the mainstream media. That's because this whole TDS is being promoted every day, sent out, by the mainstream media, and so if people are watching that is an impact. That does have an impact on them. But you should change the channel, watch something that is more intelligent.
Does the Republican side have their own TDS version?
Well, I explained that rhinos have TDS, and that is why they oppose, Trump's policies in Congress, which of course goes against what the people voted them for. When people were voting for them, they assumed that they were going to espouse Republican values, and then they betray them.
Yeah, I've been saying for some time now that just as the Democrat Party has been taken over by communists, really by Marxists, that the GOP has been taken over by rhinos, and this started at least a couple of decades ago. And we've got to get rid of those rhinos. They are the ones who are giving Republicans a bad name, because they don't fight for any Republican principles. They have none.
Yes, that is true. Some of these things, Mitch McConnell, for example, is a good example of a rhino. Of course, now we don't have to worry about him anymore, I guess.
Well, he's still there, though. And his thing is also he's married to his wife is Chinese, and I have a feeling that there has to be CCP influence on whatever he does.
Absolutely.
So a person suffering from TDS.
If he doesn't go along, well, just let me say, if he doesn't go along with CCP, his wife has a headache every night.
Oh my goodness. So
if I were his wife, I'd have a headache looking at him.
your sense of imagination is beyond me. But the thing is that so let's say an individual does have a significant level of TDS. Okay, where's the reward for that? What are they getting in return for the anxiety and the misery? In return,
All self-inflicted.
They are getting the gratification of putting Trump down, of telling the world that they made a big mistake in electing Trump, in speaking out or acting out, and that they are standing up. They think that they are the ones who are protecting America. They are standing up for American values, so they think, and they're letting everybody know it. So, and whether it's attacking Teslas or running after people who are wearing MAGA hats on the subway. There was a woman who did that, and then she fell on her face because on the platform. All kinds of things. But it's just, even if nothing, obviously nothing really happens, Trump doesn't change his mind about something because they don't like him. But they get gratification from just being the one to point out the truth to the world.
I think personally that President Trump purposely does things to pull their tail.
Yes, they're changing.
Okay.
Yes, yes.
They don't have the sense of humor. Leftists do not have a good sense of humor. They have a cruel sense of humor. That's it. But they don't really have a good sense of humor. They can't see a joke for what it is.
Trump would be actually interested in pulling their tail, but I do think that Trump will pull their tail if it's necessary for him to get his agenda out.
Yeah, but sometimes I think he does it just because there's nothing else to do. And he'll get a kick out of it because they go haywire, they go crazy.
He is.
Yeah, I think there's some of that.
It's like kids. It's like boys in primary school. You'll do stuff to get the teacher angry at you sometimes if you're not fearful of what's going to happen to you at home or at the principal's office.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Trump is like that. He's a naughty boy at times. Let's put it that way.
That you're officially
in a fun way. Not in any way that's going to damage anything. Damage America, certainly.
No. He is. He could be a great stand-up comedian.
Yes.
Yes.
The left just can't appreciate it.
On OANN 6 years ago.
I think that it's just he seems.
I'm sorry.
I was waiting for the lady to speak.
No, Dr. Lieberman, I can't hear you.
I
was going to mention
couldn't hear what he was saying, but
I'm sorry, we're not very
polite.
polite.
Doctor.
I think that sometimes he thinks that, he does think that what the left says and does is so ridiculous that he is forced to say something, to equally ridiculous or equally, to pull their tail, pull their chain, something like that, because it's like, he's thinking, what? What are you saying? What are you doing? It's just such absurd stuff.
Yeah. And he has never insulted people as badly as they have insulted him.
Well,
I think
this is not presidential. It's not professional what they do to him either.
His outspokenness is one of his traits that has drawn people in.
Well, yeah, when he first ran, and I started listening to him and seeing that he was, first off, he didn't need this job. He didn't have to do this. He had a great life. And I felt he was doing it for the country. And he was sacrificing a lot. And I really felt that it's time we didn't have a professional politician running things again. That was why I went so gung-ho on him his first time around, and the second as well, and this one.
Yes, he's really all about common sense. And for anybody after what he did in Butler, Pennsylvania, getting up from after being shot in the ear, in the head, basically, and getting up and saying, fight, 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 that showed the mettle of the man. That showed what he was made of. because
Yeah.
he couldn't have planned that before he, was at the rally. He didn't know that somebody was going to shoot him
No,
that
not
day.
according to the left.
So he didn't practice saying fight, fight, fight. It was a totally automatic,
Spontaneous.
spontaneous thing that he did. And what he was saying was like if I die, then fight. You keep on fighting for this country. So
Yeah.
people just have to see those couple of seconds to know the mettle of the man, what he's made of.
I think
But
it
he's
actually
also
did bring some people over to his side before the
he's
election.
also a showman, and he knows exactly when to make the most out of a particular moment. And right then and there, regardless of the fact he was shot and stuff, some part of him said, "You have to do something with this. You have to make it. You have to make it iconic." And
Yes.
that's what he did. And I'll be honest with you, fight,
Yes.
fight, fight is not
Yes.
what I would call, a verbal like eloquence, but it's enough after you've been shot. That's what I say. But I want to ask you a
Well,
question.
it's not a whole complex sentence, but it shows like where his heart is. That he wants to fight for America. He really wants to make America great again. That's what he's all about.
Yeah,
I
it
think
shows he has courage.
I think it was angry too, because general rule of thumb, I would presume, because I've never been shot, if you get shot, you're not pleased about it. You're pretty angry, and it was probably it was such a that one moment changed the entire election. And it literally
Yes, I think.
turned him into a martyr. And the thing is that every time when they
Yes.
attack Trump, they make him stronger, and they're doing the same thing to Musk. It's just Elon Musk, who is adjacent to Trump, Trump adjacent. He's a marvel. Actually, every single one of his crew is a marvel. And I'll be honest with you, and I know this is going to sound a little sexist, but I think that the women that he picked, who are all very attractive, are dynamos. They're amazing. I absolutely love Pam Bondi. She is a whirlwind. And everybody else, Christy Nome and, etc. They're,
Tulsi.
what?
Tulsi Gabbard.
Oh, okay. That's right. I'm sorry. But anyway, I'm so excited. But my point is that when he picked those ladies, I knew nothing about them, really. I'm not a political person. And I said, oh, God, he's going to get a lot of flack for picking all these pretty girls. And then I find out they're all dynamos, and they're just incredible women. And I think if you want to promote feminism in this country, promote them, because they are a fine example of what an unbound woman can do. Much like yourself, a much more powerful, not male self. I like it. I like it a lot.
Yeah, you are obviously fighting an uphill battle against a lot of your colleagues too.
Yes.
Yeah, that's trying to get.
And just the general battle of I started well, I've always been in the media, but I have started talking about patriotic kinds of things. I got 9/11 actually. I was going to say 2016 when Biden was in the basement. I was doing a lot of talking about how he has encroaching dementia. I was trying to warn people from the get-go that this guy, has encroaching dementia, and it is going to encroach more and more as his term goes on, which of course it did. But actually, I became particularly patriotic after 9/11. And that's when I became the terrorist therapist. And I've been helping people in America, in Israel, in Paris, in London, in Manchester with terror attack, not only with the terror attacks, but with learning about terrorism and being aware that that we are, Europe is almost gone, really.
Yeah.
The radical Islamist migrants have taken over. And America has to wake up and realize that is what's happened gradually, little by little. That is what is happening here,
And
because there are the plan and what
they're being blatant about it. Just up in Dearborn, some guy was saying that they're going to take the whole country. They don't care about our culture, our religion, anything about us, they want to make us into a caliphate.
Yes, yes.
Yeah,
And and they have, I mean, it was there even back at 9/11, if not before, really. But I started knowing about it around 9/11. There were plans back then to not just crash into buildings, but to infiltrate the media and the education system and things like that, which they have been doing and have been making incredible progress on that. And also the anti-Semitism. I mean, all these protests, these people raising signs, pro-Hamas signs, pro-Palestine signs, Palestinian signs, whatever that is. And anti-Israel, they're saying like anti-Zion, but they really mean anti-Jew. And so this is we are at a boiling point here, and nobody. Well, I won't say nobody. Actually, Trump is doing something about it. I mean, he did the most for Israel of any president with the Abraham Accord and moving the embassy and so on. And now he's trying to get rid of the people at the colleges who are leading these protests. So there's hope. But I mean, if Kamala would have won, this country would have been taken over.
Yeah. Have you heard Patrick Byrne, the former founder of Overstock.com? First off, the Venezuelan government has a contract out on him. And he spoke. I saw yesterday, I watched an interview he did with Patrick Bet-David back in 2020. And more recently, a couple of days ago, I saw him speak with Roseanne Barr. And he's revealed in both, he said it 4 years ago or 6 years ago, and again now, that China and Iran are basically controlling the voting machines that we use. They have turned elections not only here but also in Brazil and other places, and how they've been infiltrating us for decades. The Chinese plan is to win without ever firing a shot, without having to fight.
Yes.
And he
they're
claims
doing
that, good job.
No,
yeah.
go ahead. No.
Well, he said that the Chinese there are convinced that by 2030, if not sooner, they will be in control of the United States. And their plan, apparently, according to Byrne, is to create such chaos in the country that there's civil strife, there's shortages of everything, maybe an EMT, I don't know what, shortages of everything. The elites seem to be trying to implement. And then he estimates that if up to 90% of the population of the United States could die in that chaos, then Canada would be divided west and east between China and Iran, and then China would eventually occupy us, literally.
I
hope not.
I don't believe that's going to happen, because
I don't think it's going to happen. If they manage to take our Second Amendment rights away, they have a chance. That's why they're fighting so hard for that.
It can happen too, because number one,
to get if they manage
to take away our Second Amendment rights. Second Amendment. England and Australia, they disowned their people. Look what's happened to those countries.
But you see, the United States is, who's the gentleman that we had that is writing a book that is about a global, like a Declaration of Independence or Declaration of. There's a gentleman that's putting together a document that is supposed to be worldwide, which talks about everybody having free speech, everybody having many of the things that are in our declaration. And we actually we're in our 70s, so we're supposed to be forgetful anyway. So anyway, the thing is that I don't believe I believe that the United States has just set a precedent by bringing Trump in, and by basically establishing all that he's doing, and by bringing in his cabinet and so forth like that. I think we are on the upside, and even, God forbid, if Trump is assassinated, and they haven't given up on that, we have Vance, who is amazing, and if not Vance, somebody else. But the American people have made their statement. They didn't just vote Trump in. It was a mandate victory. There were all of the states that were fluky voted for him. All of the what's the proper term for those?
Swing states.
Thank you. So the thing is, we've got that. We have the blue-red line has actually become red now, and there's talk about blue states actually going red, and it's an earnest conversation. So the thing is that America. I was at an event once, and there were Korean people there and South Korean people there, and they said to me, we're very worried about America because if America falls, so does the world. And I was thinking, really? Really? Were we that important? Yes, we are, actually. I didn't realize it until I talked to these people, because I also talked to people from Germany saying the same thing. We are an example to the rest of the world. And President Trump
absolutely
is alive, because it's not just a mandate from the people, it's a mandate from God himself. And I believe that it was divine intervention. I know that's kind of fluky, but it's divine intervention that caused him to turn a few centimeters here and there and not have his brains blown out. And, I just...
First time, by the way, CNN was covering one of his rallies live.
Yes.
The first and only time, because they wanted us to see him get his head blown off.
Well, the thing is that that is another reason why there's TDS, is because this man is unstoppable. He's extremely lucky. And if you're going to have an enemy, and no matter what you do, he dodges this, he dodges that, he avoids the lawyers, he doesn't get shot. No matter what you say about him, just rolls off of him. The people around him love him. I think one of the things that I would be concerned, and I'm going to ask Dr. Lieberman about this, is, are you concerned that we're reaching a threshold with TDS that there might be a radical break in these people's psychology?
Well, I used to think that after the election, when there was no more question of who was going to win and all of that, the election was done, Trump won, that the people with TDS were just going to, go away. I mean, we're just going to sort of, what we're going to see all these wonderful things that he was going to do for the country, and then they would think, oh, well, okay, this is pretty good. But now that some time has passed since the election and the inauguration, I was at the inauguration, by the way.
Wow.
Since this time has passed, they aren't just going away with their tails between their legs. Some of them are getting more angry. They're getting angry that they're not having the effect of canceling him. So I think anything is possible to happen. And yes, I worry very much about the people out there who still are trying to assassinate him. And it bothers me that, presumably he's wearing a bulletproof vest, but still, he really does seem, and I know, of course, they're Secret Service, but sometimes it seems to me that he's taking too many risks. And there are all kinds of people, not just people like supposedly Iran has hired a hitman and various people, but there's also the people who no one knows about, just people who are psychotic. I mean, who for various reasons, who want to be famous or who have TDS or, something that they're really under the radar. And, lone wolves, right. And so, it is, and I think consciously or unconsciously, that is part of the reason why he is trying to do so much so quickly. I think probably maybe just unconsciously, but he's feeling that the clock is ticking.
Yeah. All that is being fueled by the Democrats and by their media, because I think most people with TDS, they were like, oh no, and but I think if they weren't reinvigorated by the media and the Democrats constantly poking them, that most of them would probably just say, okay, let's see what happens. But how can you be against, for example, what Doge is doing? They're not even doing anything. They're suggesting, okay? And Trump and the department heads are the ones who have the final say. But
right.
I think this is happening all over. I mean, you don't hear in the media here about the farmers out in the Netherlands, France, and I think Italy and other places who have been protesting for the past couple of years now. You don't hear over here because the media won't tell us that everybody is going Trumpian. everybody's going populist, I guess, and in South America also.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yes.
I mean, I'm sure you've got your ear to the ground on that. What do you think of that manipulation of news?
Well, I think it's awful. I think, I think about it, especially in regard to terrorism, that if Americans saw what was happening every day in Europe, every single day, it's not like an occasional terror attack, there are things happening every day, people being stabbed in the streets. France is really bad. England, the UK is probably the worst. Germany used to be the worst because they were the ones who started by allowing a lot of migrants to come into Germany. And I used to live in Paris, and I lived in London for a while too. I studied with Anna Freud at her clinic. So I feel personally, it makes me personally sad when I see what's happening to these countries. But yes, that's why America doesn't realize how dangerous it is, to allow all these protesters with these signs and so on, who are basically terrorists, in our streets, because they don't know, what's already happening, all the rape that's going on in England, in Germany. It happens all the time by these radical Islamist migrants.
So too good.
A 12-year-old girl was raped in England, and they held the girl responsible. She was gang raped. Held the girl responsible because she should have known better than to go into that neighborhood. Wow. That's and that's
yes, and also
they was arrested recently because he wouldn't say the right pronouns.
Who's this?
A 3-year-old that was arrested.
Oh, that sounds he was arrested by the police.
Yeah, in England. 3-year-old.
Yes, it's just over the top, and the mainstream media doesn't want us to see it because they don't want us to be aware, of this kind of thing creeping onto our shores.
Yeah. Speaking of the pronouns and so forth, what do you think is behind this huge gender dysphoria wave that happened the last couple of years?
Nice question.
Well, it's been going on for a while, but it particularly picked up during and after COVID, because that was when the kids were out of school and they didn't get all the socialization during those 2 years that they normally should have gotten, getting along with each other, forming their identity and so on. So when they came back to school, we are all still, in a way, we're all still affected by COVID. It has changed people. But when the kids came back to school, and they were feeling depressed or feeling alienated or feeling, not in touch with the world, not knowing who they are and all of that, the liberal teachers took advantage of this and started telling them that what's wrong with you, is that were born in the wrong body, that you're really a girl or you're really a boy. If you were only a boy or a girl, instead of what you are, then you'd be a lot happier. Everything would be great in your life. And then, of course, the medical establishment, went along with it because this is a cash cow to give hormones and surgery and, to do these so-called evaluations, mental health evaluations at the beginning, to then decide that, yes, they do have gender dysphoria and then send them on this train to get all these other things. I mean, they are just, it's a child abuse, and they are just abusing all these children for greed and for some of them for their political beliefs.
Yeah, so much for the Hippocratic Oath's first principle.
Right. You can't tell in a half an hour or an hour, even an hour, whether someone has gender dysphoria. First of all, it's supposed to be over at least 6 months. And typically it is something else. It's either a phase or it's they're angry, they're upset because their parents are getting divorced, or their best friend broke up with them, or their boyfriend or girlfriend broke up with them, something. It's not because they really wanted to be the opposite sex.
What do you think about these parents who encourage this? In other words, if a boy puts on a dress just for the heck of it, for fun of it, or puts on his mother's high heels and walks around, she says, "Oh, right, he's really a girl." What do you think? And vice versa with a girl who is maybe a tomboy.
Right.
I mean, I knew tomboys growing up, and most of them have got married and had families later on.
Yes, absolutely. They grew into lovely feminine girls. Well, really, it's the unconscious of the parents. Like if a mother or a father wanted to have the opposite sex child than they had, let's say, they had a boy and they really wanted a girl,
Yeah.
and and then the boy tries on their shoes or something. He really wants to be a girl. I'm going to help him with that. So it's really sad. It's really sick.
Especially in Hollywood, it's
It's really
very prevalent
unfortunate.
there.
Isn't
They
this
take it as a
really
Where?
badge of honor almost. Sorry, Mike.
right? I was going to say, isn't this really also a social malay in that you get some sort of virtue by having a child that is transgender? You become
Yes.
this superior person
Right.
because it seems like
Yes, you are cool
we've had this
because you are
conversation.
affirming your child.
Right. It's a herd mentality to some extent. So this Trump Derangement Syndrome requires an audience.
Yes, that's a good point. Because it's much better if you yell at the television set when Trump is on, if there are people who can hear you, or you throw your shoes at the television set. If there's somebody there watching you, that's much more, satisfying.
Satisfying.
So, yes.
So based upon that answer, I'm thinking that you see it as a more personal issue, not so much as a social malaise.
A more personal issue?
In other words, Trump Derangement Syndrome could be experienced if a person is very to themselves versus being part of a group and getting affirmation.
Yeah, it can be all kinds of. I mean, they get more pleasure demonstrating their TDS in front of other people, but it is an individual thing. I mean, people have their own reasons for why they start to believe that way.
Because I was thinking, if you can affect the support base that basically rewards them for having this condition, you might be able to chip away at their desire to be that way. But I don't know your business, so I'm just presuming.
Speaking of looking into people's minds, I heard something the other day. You had a different take on President Zelensky. Would you care to expound on your view of what motivates him?
Well, I used to like President Zelensky. When the war started, I felt sorry for him. I thought when he went on video, on Zoom and talked to Congress and talked to people all over the world to try to get help for his citizens and all that, he was really working every minute of the day to try to help his country. And I thought that was very noble of him. But things have changed. And I think the thing was, when he had the meeting with Trump, he was expecting something else. He was led to believe by some leftists, people who, he was led to believe that Trump needed him more than he needed Trump to stop the war. And that's why he was very arrogant. He was like a teenager, particularly when the media started asking questions and so on. He wanted to be the star, and he wanted to show that he's tougher than Trump. And it really went off the deep end. Now, of course, it's unfortunate that since then Putin has kind of shown some of his dark side too. It seemed like Putin was going to be willing to come to the table, but now they're both kind of reacting to each other, and nobody's really thinking about the poor Ukrainians except Trump, and he can't do it by himself.
Well,
Ukrainians and Russians, so many
what do you
dying.
think? What do you think about Senator Fetterman? How he has essentially changed our view of him. He's almost a Republican by the way he speaks a lot of the times. He's a matter of fact kind of guy now. But that's not what we were expecting. We were expecting some sort of leftist lunatic, and we ended up with a decent guy.
Well, I attribute it, I don't know about you, but I attribute it to his having left his very leftist, very crazy wife, and all of a sudden he got common sense.
They divorced?
Oh, did he? Oh, that's good. I didn't know that.
Oh, yeah, she was really the bad leftist, and after he split with her, all of a sudden he just became rational.
Yes, I remember when he was running, and I thought to myself, I remember I didn't really trust her. And I thought to myself that he was doing a lot of things for her and that she was going to betray him or she wasn't going to stick with him if he was still, that sick, if he didn't recover. And yes, that's interesting that you say that. I'm glad that he woke up.
I think if Fetterman had lent Zelensky some of his clothes, he might have fit in better.
Anyway, well, that shows, what happened with Zelensky, what happened with, what's his name, Mitch McConnell and other things. It just goes to show you that you don't have to be intelligent. Look at AOC and Maxine Waters, people like that. You don't have to be intelligent to be in public office. And
yes.
It seems the dumber they are, the higher they go in the political hierarchy, which is why, one reason I wanted Trump to go, because I said, we've had enough of these politicians. Years ago, I used to think when I was, 40 years ago, I thought lawyers were probably the best people to put in office. Turns out they write laws that only they understand and the people have to live with.
It's just that, I'm still rattled by Fetterman, and the thing is that I'm a Pennsylvanianite, if you can say that. I'm Pennsylvanian or whatever you're supposed to be called. And I voted for Dr. Oz. Mm-hmm. And I was absolutely convinced that Fetterman was a bad guy. And then on top of that, then he has all his physical problems. So why would you continue to run him? I felt as though he was being carried, pretty much like Biden was.
And Jill carried Biden, yeah.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I thought the two of them make a perfect pair. So the thing is that when all of a sudden I start seeing snippets of his declarations and they make sense, and I'm going, and I don't want them to make sense because I'm expecting a basic madman, and instead I like him, and I'm kind of glad that he made it. But do you know why he actually? I'm talking to the doctor this time. Do you know why? Do you have any insight into how that happened, or whether or not, or maybe I was just delusional myself?
Well, I really didn't know that much about him until he ran. But I also was very much, I couldn't believe that people were voting for him when he was in such a mental state that didn't really seem like he was going to make enough of a recovery. But this just shows you the miracles of modern psychiatry. He came back from a very seriously problem, cognitive state, not necessarily, I don't mean he was psychotic or whatever, but he had, because of the strokes, he had lots of intellectual problems, cognitive problems, and he made and he was so depressed too, which also adds to cognitive problems, and he made an amazing recovery.
From now on in the podcast, I'd like you to speak to whatever it is you feel is important for our viewers to listen to hear.
Good idea.
Rather than us asking you questions, I'm going to let you run loose.
Okay, well, I think we're pretty much out of time, actually, but I will be happy to talk a little bit more. We've covered the main topics that I am concerned. First of all, Trump Derangement Syndrome, and Trump, which goes along with all of these obstacles that Trump is having towards for getting his policies enacted. I mean, it has just gotten ridiculous between the lawfare and all these different ways that people are trying to stop him from these his executive orders and other kinds of policies, things that he had promised he was going to do and has started to do, and they're just trying to stop him every which way. And that has to stop because these things do make common sense, and he's trying to restore America back to the Norman Rockwell kind of America, the Norman Rockwell paintings where men fathers took their, I'm sorry, what?
Which the left hates.
Right. Where, fathers taking their sons fishing and kids sitting at in the ice cream parlor, and people sitting around Thanksgiving dinner, flags, all of that good stuff. And, there was at least one Norman Rockwell picture in the White House, and Biden took it down. And that was such a metaphor, because he didn't want, Obama didn't want, who was, the puppeteer of Biden. They don't
Yes.
want Americans to remember what America used to be like. And Trump is trying to bring it back, not to be old fashioned, but to the values, the traditional values. So I think people need to leave him alone. I mean, leave him alone in terms of stopping all the things that he's trying to put forward. And as far as terrorism, I was talking about how we have to wake up to that. And also let me mention a couple of things. My website, my favorite website of I have a few websites, and my favorite is terroristtherapist.com. Terroristtherapist.com. And I would love to terroristtherapist.com. And
I'm gonna have to check that out.
and I would love people to watch. I created music videos for the anniversaries, the last 4 anniversaries of 9/11, and I created one for the first anniversary of October 7th. And so for 9/11, the first 3 years, they were pretty warm and fuzzy, why we need to remember 9/11 and all of this. Last year, I made one that was a lot more hard hitting, warning people that Israel is just the canary in the coal mine, that they are after us. And these things were I put these things on mobile billboards on trucks going around Manhattan and around DC for the 9/11 videos. And for October 7th, I went around LA. And you can see them on my website. And also my book, terroristtherapist.com.
Okay.
And I also have my book on there. I've written 2 books about terrorism, but my most recent one is Lions and Tigers and Terrorists, Oh My, How to Protect Your Child in a Time of Terror. And kids need that.
Okay, Dorothy.
It's actually the first half of the book is for grown-ups, how to talk to kids about terrorism, why that's important, how to recognize when your child is having emotional problems due to terrorism, and so on. But then the second half is a picture book for kids about terrorism, all the highlights of terrorism from 9/11 to the Middle East,
That sounds very
why terrorists want to kill us, to to the Boston Marathon, the underwear bomber, all of the good stuff, that Charlie Hebdo, all of that. So so kids need to know the highlights of, or lowlights of, terrorism.
Yeah, we can no longer rely on teachers to tell them these things.
Right. They don't even mention 9/11 in a lot of schools.
Yeah. Well, you can slide a copy of that in between mommy is daddy in the school library.
Yeah, right. That's right.
What is your other book? What's your other book?
Oh, I wrote my first terrorism book, was published by a London publisher for the first anniversary of their 9/11, which was 7/7 in 2005. So it was published on 7/7, 2006. And then my other books are Bad Girls. Well, my first book was Bad Boys, Why We Love Them, How to Live with Them, and When to Leave Them. And Bad Girls, Why Men Love Them, and How Good Girls Can Learn Their Secrets.
Hey, all right. Well,
so I kind of got to more serious kinds of things. But I mean, obviously, everybody wants to have a relationship, so yes, that's important too.
Wow. One last thing. You got to say what you wanted, but the thing is that our main focus here was about the discord in this country presently, and some of the people who are carrying a great burden. So the thing is that for those people that do not have this condition, who are not suffering specifically from Trump Derangement Syndrome, they're just trying to make it. What's your best advice to them on, what is the happy thought that might be able to hold them through this? And is that too much to ask for? Is that just like the golden bullet is an impossibility, or what?
Well, I mean, in a lot of cases, like we were talking about earlier, it's not a good idea to try to argue with someone who has TDS. I mean, one of the things I've been suggesting is that if you're having a dinner, like especially around the holidays or so on, but anytime, if you're having a dinner or you're sitting with people for some reason and they start mentioning something that is TDS, instead of trying to argue with them, make a rule ahead of time. Like if it's at a dinner and you put a glass on the table and you say every time that somebody mentions, we're not going to talk politics tonight, but if somebody mentions Trump or mentions politics, you have to put $1 or a quarter or whatever is appropriate for that group in this cup. And then the money goes to a charity, because that's really the only way at this point to deal with that. Otherwise, you're just going to have arguments. I mean, you know that there are people who don't. Well, you know better than anybody. You know that your wife left you. I mean, there are those kinds of things happening all over. There are. I've heard of divorces too, and families, not relatives not talking to their relatives because of them voting for Trump and so on. So there's a lot of division, and it can't be fixed. It can't be fixed by one argument.
Mm-hmm. If you do try to use that, put the money in the cup thing, can the people make change?
Disregard the man behind the curtain. Well,
I mean, I'm hoping, just to add my last comment, I'm hoping that with as I'm when I get this when I've been talking about it before, but when I finally finish what was the word I'm looking for? When I finally finish proposing it, sending it in to the American Psychiatric Association, and I'm going to be talking about it more and helping people to recognize. I'm also going to do something where it could be like a quiz. You can diagnose yourself, and hopefully more people will realize that they have some degree, mild, moderate, or major, of TDS, and maybe that'll be an awakening.
Right. Maybe we should contact the gentleman that does those questionnaires. Remember the one that was asking people?
John Moran?
Yes, and put these two together, because there's a gentleman that uses scientifically designed questionnaires for people to discover what their polarity is on various subjects. So if you actually want to do that, this guy might be able to do it for you.
I'd be happy to talk with him.
Okay.
Actually, he's on one of our podcasts, so you can actually see what it's about before you even, reach out or anything.
Just look for the one with Mike Moran of OpsCore.
Yeah, I mean, I have lists of symptoms, and I was really going to just, put it like, do you such and such? Do you do this? Do you do that? Do you feel this way? That
You're
kind
the
of
doctor.
thing.
I would trust you to, to do it better.
He may have a way of forming those questions in such a way as not to make them inherently undesirable to choose yes or no. So I don't know. I just thought it might be a good idea.
We've already kept you longer than you wanted to stay, I believe, but I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for coming on and speaking with us. Good luck with the book, and good luck in getting what you want. The AMA to, the DMC, I forget, DMV,
the APA, all these words, the APA and the DSM.
DSM. That's for your part. Yes. It's like Mike said, we're old. We get things confused sometimes.
You just stand out like.
Well, thank you for having me.
It was a pleasure. Really a pleasure.
Bye-bye.
Okay.
You have a good night now. Bye-bye.
You too.